continue with our discussions. In the last class what we did, we started, or rather we were discussing void fraction, and I told you that the most common techniques which are usually used, the most common techniques which are used is the volume measurement, radioactive absorption and scattering. It is usually the radiation attenuation techniques, it is better known as. And then the other technique which is very commonly used is the impedance technique, because very frequently what we find that the electrical conductivity of the two phases are usually different, or the electrical capacitance of the two phases are usually different. So, therefore, it is very common, or rather this technique is also, it is the second most widely used method for void fraction measurement. In this case, it involves the measurement of either the conductance or the capacitance depending upon the system. If we are operating at a higher frequency, then capacitance is dominating. In that case, the method works on the difference in the dielectric constants of the two phases. Okay. And if we are operating at lower frequency, then it is based on the difference in electrical conductivity of the two phases. Usually for air water system we prefer conductivity probes, but for certain other systems it is better that we depend on the dielectric constant difference. Remember one thing, the only problem, it is easier to design the circuits for conductivity probes. The only problem is, as we all know, that conductivity, it's very difficult to maintain a constant conductivity of the liquid, isn't it? The conductivity varies, even if you take tap water every day, in fact after half an hour if you measure, you will find the conductivity changes. It depends upon the dissolved solids, the dissolved gases, the temperature, pressure, it depends on a large number of factors. So, therefore, it is a much more variable as compared to the dielectric constant. Okay. So, for more accurate measurements, very often we would prefer to exploit the difference in dielectric constant as compared to difference in electrical conductivity. Okay. Now, when we are using it, what we have to do? We have to measure, say again the same thing, the conductivity when the tube is full of water, maybe the conductivity when the tube is full of air, if it is a air water mixture, and then we have to find out the conductivity when the two phase mixture is flowing. Now, do you mean to say that after we measure the conductivity, we have to convert it to the void fraction, because our final aim is to find out the void fraction, isn't it? So, if we have to convert the conductivity to void fraction, we need some sort of a relationship. Usually Maxwell's relationships are used for this particular purpose, because the admittance, which is nothing but 1 by impedance. This I believe you already know, isn't it? Admittance A, it is equal to 1 by impedance, where this particular impedance, it can be conductivity or it can be dielectric constant. So, the point is, if this particular admittance has to be related to void fraction, then there has to be some particular mathematical relationship for it, isn't it? Now, any particular mathematical relationship if we use, this relationship definitely, firstly it will not be a linear relationship, and secondly it cannot be same for different flow patterns. Is it possible that the relationship between impedance and void fraction that you obtain for annular flow, the same relationship cannot be used to find out the void fraction for bubbly flow? Definitely it is not possible, okay, because the relationship between void fraction and impedance or admittance, which is the reciprocal of impedance, this has to be different for different distributions. When we are dealing with dispersed systems, then we can use the Maxwell's equation for this. If you see the Maxwell's equation, you find that this particular Maxwell's relation, it is the admittance, it expresses alpha in terms of the admittance of the two phase mixture, the admittance when the tube is full of liquid, and the dielectric constants or the conductivities when the tube is full of water and when it is completely empty or full of gas. Now, we find that when the dispersion of gas bubbles in liquid, this is the relationship. When it is liquid droplets in gas, this is the relationship. So, we find that even for dispersed flow also, if the dispersed medium and the continuous medium are interchanged, keeping everything else constant, under that condition also alpha is different for the two cases. We have different expressions for alpha when gas bubbles are dispersed in liquid and when there are liquid droplets dispersed in gas. So, therefore, you can very well understand that the only hitch in finding out alpha from your impedance is we have to know the distribution of the two phases in order to find out a relationship between alpha and admittance or alpha and impedance. This is the first thing. Nevertheless, this technique is very, very attractive. Can you tell me why? Any electrical technique is very attractive. Firstly, definitely it is cheaper, it is safer, cheaper as compared to radiation techniques. The other thing, the advantage of all electrical techniques is it gives an almost instantaneous response. So, therefore, due to its fast response, it is always very attractive, right. So, the thing is we find that even for dispersed flow, when the dispersing and the continuous medium are interchanged, we have different relationships, and definitely totally different relationships will be there when we are having dispersed flow and when we are having separated flow. Even for separated flow, the same relationship cannot apply for stratified cases and annular cases. Okay. Now, this particular figure, this is going to show you the effect of flow pattern on conductivity. From here you can very well see that even for the same void fraction, we get even for the same admittance ratio, if we have bubbly flow, we have one void fraction, if we have annular flow, we get another void fraction. So, for the same admittance, if you see, we find that for, and say admittance ratio is 0.3, for that particular case, when it is annular flow, the void fraction is 0.2, and when it is bubbly or slug flow, the void fraction is say almost 0.7, 0.75. So, therefore, if we have to know really what is the void fraction within this particular wide range, then we have to know the distribution of the voids or the flow pattern. Without an a priori knowledge of the flow pattern, it is not possible to find out the void fraction or the quantitative value of void fraction very accurately by using the impedance technique. This particular part we have to remember. So, what are the advantages? Definitely the first advantage is almost instantaneous response, and it is obviously very accurate if an a priori knowledge of flow pattern is there. What are the disadvantages? Firstly, its sensitivity to flow pattern definitely. The other thing is, try to keep this in mind. See, suppose we are using the conductivity probe, which works on the basis of difference in conductivity of the liquid and the gas. Now, remember one thing, when we are having a larger proportion of the liquid, okay, smaller proportion of gas, it is fine. Okay. Liquid, say we are having a high conductivity, moment gas is being introduced, gradually conductivity decreases, then when we have a large amount of gas or something, the conductivity becomes 0. Okay. Now, for greater amount of liquid, or in other words, when liquid forms the continuous phase, then what happens? The liquid more or less it gives a path for the electrical circuit to be completed. But if gas becomes the predominant phase, then in that case what happens? The liquid, they will be dispersed. So, therefore, under that circumstances, the gas is not going to give you a continuous path for the electrical circuit to be completed. So, therefore, if the flow patterns change, but the gas is the continuous phase, but or the gas is a major quantity in for high quality flows, what happens? we find since circuit is not completed, it is going to give you a 0 output, no matter even if the flow pattern changes or even if the void fraction changes. Is it correct? So, remember one thing, most of these techniques they work well only when we are doing for low quality flows. It can be bubbly, it can be slug, it can go up to churn as well. Sometimes in annular flow it gives more or less good results. Why? You know, because since there is a continuous liquid film, so around the liquid film more or less a path is provided. But usually we find whenever we go for high quality flows, these techniques they are not suitable at all. This has to be kept in mind. They are suitable only primarily for low quality flows. And the other thing, definitely uncertainties in data interpretation. Unless you know the flow pattern, unless you have a proper mathematical expression, it is very difficult. Even if you do not have a mathematical expression also, in situ calibration is possible, just like the way I was discussing for radiation absorption. We can take up an in situ calibration. We find out the conductivity when it is full of water, zero conductivity when it is full of air, see what is the conductivity for the two phase flow. Definitely this conductivity will change, or it is a very sensitive function of void orientation, the void distribution and so on and so forth. It is going to be highly affected by this. But one good thing about this is, see, in radiation absorption always you get a caudal average void fraction, is not it? Volume average, you always get a volume average void fraction. But in this impedance technique, we can design the probes to suit our purpose such that if required we can obtain an idea about the volume average. If required, we can find an idea regarding the area average. If required, we can have an idea about the caudal average or the time average as well. Okay. For example, and remember one thing, these conductivity probes were not very popular, or the impedance probes were not very popular even about 50 years back also. Why? Because the design of electrode is very important. So, with advanced designs, the entire efficiency depends on how well you design the electrodes. That is very, very important. So, therefore, it is very flexible. We can use it to our advantage if you have a mastery over the designs and the circuits. That is what is important. For example, suppose you want area average. What will you do? We can take, say, arc electrode probes. But people have been using them. These are known as arc electrode probes. What they do? They are more or less, they are mounted on diametrically opposite walls. They span the entire tube wall, and then from here through the electrical lines, more or less they give us an idea about the area average void fraction. There are definitely some problems here. The most accurate thing we will be getting if more or less the entire cross section is covered, but that is not possible, because we have to ensure that the electrical path takes place through the two phase medium. So, if they touch here, then the thing is gone, remember that. Okay. So, the advantage of this arc electrode probe is that it is non-intrusive, it does not disturb the flow passage. And the disadvantage, remember one thing, see these things exactly it is difficult to get in any textbooks. The problem is slides also, they do not provide you everything. So, the best thing you hear it properly, understand it, ask me questions, and then if you want we can sit for an informal discussion, so that I can clarify whatever doubts you have. Okay, wherever you do not understand, you raise your hand, and then I will be explaining it once more. Okay. So, therefore, this arc electrode probes, the advantages definitely it is non-intrusive and it gives us an area average value. Disadvantages, firstly, converting its signal into voidage, that is not very easy. It requires very extensive mathematical manipulation, but if that can be done, then it is worth it. there are certain other inaccuracies here. For example, just like I was talking in radiation absorption, towards the walls there are some amount of fringing effects towards here and here, okay, and the closer these two can be made, the more accurate area average we can get. Instead of this, a much more simpler thing is, if we want a caudal average void fraction, we can take two wires very closely spaced, okay, and then they can be connected to any particular circuit. Now, in this case what happens, since the wires are very closely spaced, the electrical path from this wire to this wire, it goes through the space between them. Depending upon the conductivity of the two phase mixture here, we can get an idea about the caudal average void fraction. This chord, it can be traversed over the entire tube cross section, and it can give us an area average void fraction as well. Right. Now, here the advantage is that the circuit is much more simpler, and getting the estimate of void fraction from the output data is simpler in this particular case. So, instead of arc electrode, we very often prefer the wire probe. It is known as parallel wire probe, parallel wire type probe, okay, which gives us the caudal average void fraction. This gives you the area average void fraction. I do not know the students who are missing today's class, it will be difficult for them slightly. The other thing which we can have is, we can have a point electrode sort of a thing. We can have something of this sort, where there is a wire here, a larger wire here. Here this gives us the point average or the time average void fraction. Whenever there is a bubble coming here, it gives us a 0 output, or else it gives us a continuous output when water is flowing here. Okay. This particular probe, it can be traversed throughout the cross section to give us the voidage profile. Right. Now, this can be other way also, we can have it in this particular way also. We can have a wire here and we can have another electrode here, so that between these two we can have a complete circuit. So, in that case it gives us a void fraction between the two. So, here also we can have more or less, we can traverse it and we can have an idea about the voidage profile. But with this particular probe, we can not only measure the voidage profile, we can also measure the frequency as well as the size of the dispersed phase as well. Now, instead of this arc electrode probe, there is one other probe also which people have used and they have got quite good results, very interestingly. See, they have put 6 electrodes along the wall. Okay, and alternate electrodes are energized simultaneously. So, therefore, once these two are energized, and then from a proper average we get an idea about the cross sectional average void fraction. So, what I want to emphasize to you is that depending upon the design of the probe, this particular technique can be used for a wide range of purposes. And suppose we want to measure the volume average, what will we do? We can just have one particular wire mesh probe here, we can just have one particular wire mesh probe here, just like the strainer through which you strain tea, just like those two we can have on both the ends, and these can be connected or completed to a circuit. So, therefore, depending upon the two phase, this is usually used for bubbly flow, for measuring bubble velocities, etc. So, depending upon the two phase mixture here, we can obtain a idea about the your volume average void fraction. But this, as you can see, this is very much intrusive. This obstructs the flow to a large extent. The obstruction can be minimized by making wires very thin such that they disturb the flow to a minimum extent, but naturally any volume average method is going to obstruct the flow. We cannot help it, at least we do not have to stop the flow or do something in this particular case. So, what I wanted to tell you was that this impedance technique, it has got a wide range of applications depending upon the design, and the more mastery we gain over the design, the more mastery we gain over the design of the circuit and the design of the probes, as well as the better we understand electrical engineering in order to convert the impedance or the admittance signals into the Voigt fraction, we can use it for a wide variety of advantages. This is something which I wanted to say. Now, after this I would like to use, or rather I would like to discuss certain other techniques which are not so very common also, but they are more or less, they are being used now more and more, and they have got, or rather in the modern times they can be exploited more for obtaining an idea about the Voigt fraction. See, first thing which I told you was radiation absorption. Okay, usually we use gamma rays. Instead of radiation absorption, we can use microwave absorption. This does not have the hazards of radiation. So, this is one very good thing about microwave. Now, remember this microwave, these things details you can get from the book by G. F. Hewitt. It is the measurement of two phase parameters. Whatever you do not understand, you can come to me. Measurement of two phase parameters. And another book is also there in the library, you can go through this, because see in exams more or less you will be getting logical questions from here. Okay. Whatever you think and do, definitely I will not tell you to write down the advantages of this technique, disadvantages, not a very direct question definitely. Handbook of Multi-Phase Systems. You can note down these two books, more or less from these two books if you study, it is going to be slightly easier for you. Well, now to continue, instead of your radiation, we can use microwave absorption. Now, remember this microwave absorption, this is particularly applicable to organic reactor coolant systems. For such organic reactor coolant Voigt fraction measurement, microwave absorption is very useful. Okay, the amount of microwave which is absorbed, that gives a measure of alpha. This is also has also been used for finding out the Voigt fraction during hydrogen vapor liquid mixture flow. Some non-conventional, see these techniques usually are used for non-conventional situations. For air water we do not have to do so much trouble. For kerosene water slightly problem is there, but air water and all this normal systems, so much moment we are encountering newer and newer applications of two phase flow, newer and newer two phases or newer and newer geometries where two phases occurring. The miscellaneous techniques are becoming important. So, this microwave absorption, this is used in organic reactor coolant system. It is also used for measurement, it has been used for measuring the Voigt fraction during hydrogen vapor liquid mixture flow, and interestingly it has been used to measure the water content of margarine. For that purpose also this microwave absorption has been used. Then there is another thing, infrared absorption. Okay, instead of gamma rays we can go for infrared absorption techniques. Now, what is the beauty of this technique? See, most of the techniques I have told you, they are very good for water continuous systems or liquid continuous systems. For high quality flows, most of the things they do not work well, because why? Because the absorption or the attenuation of radiations, they are maximum for water, they are much less for air. So, when there is a large amount of air, whatever small water amount is there, that does not much affect the attenuation process. Electrical impedance again works for low quality flows. the beauty of infrared absorption is this works for high quality flows. So, therefore, if we have to go for high quality flows, it is very good for air, water, steam water and such flows. This is one. The other very interesting thing is, see this neutron noise analysis, they are all for nuclear reactors, okay, where alpha is obtained from correlating the analysis of signals from neutron detectors. From neutron detectors, just as I was mentioning, from neutron detectors the amount of neutrons which has been emitted, that it can be related to alpha by some correlation, that is number 1. Another interesting thing is, say suppose you use say a sodium liquid vapor system. Normally we do not use them, but now with this defense etc., this has come. For sodium liquid vapor system, which technique will you use? Radiation absorption is not a very good technique, okay, because both of them they are having more or less comparable amounts of attenuation. Impedance technique going to fail, conductivity is high for both of them. So, for such systems what will you use? What people have observed is that if we can induce some pressure fluctuation into the system, okay, or if you can induce some flow fluctuation into the or some pressure fluctuation into the system by a pump or something, they cause some flow fluctuation, and this particular flow fluctuation that depends upon alpha, the void fraction. So, this particular this particular technique which I have written, link between pressure and flow oscillations, this is primarily used for sodium liquid vapor systems. Okay. By using a pump, we impose some amount of pressure oscillations. From this pressure oscillation, some flow oscillations are induced. This flow oscillations depend upon alpha. This is one. Certain other techniques, if you see if we can use the amount of radiation absorbed, we can also use the amount of sound wave which is absorbed. Okay. We can find out the velocity of sound. We very well know the velocity of sound is a function of the medium through which it is travelling. This is a very well known fact. Okay. So, therefore, through water it will travel fast, through air it will travel slow, through two phase mixture it will be something intermediate. So, we can measure the velocity and we will try to find out alpha there. But again in this particular case, remember that the velocity, it depends upon not only the void fraction, but also on the void size and void orientation. Number 1. Number 2, sound frequency, keeping it constant is very difficult. Just like maintaining I0 was important there, here also the initial sound frequency has to be maintained. Maintaining a constant sound frequency is difficult here. This you remember. The other technique is, see, we can measure the inlet velocity. It is given by J1 and J2, right. Suppose by any means we can measure the in situ velocity U1, then once we can measure U1, we can measure J1, we can find out 1 minus alpha, or in other words, so if you can measure J2, if you can measure U2, you can find out alpha. So, by some particular localized measurements, if we can measure the in situ local velocity, then it is very easy to find out alpha. Now, what can we do? Suppose two phase flow is occurring here, we simply inject a radioactive tracer. This radioactive tracer will be flowing at the in situ velocity of the continuous phase, okay, or the phase which absorbs it. So, accordingly we can measure the in situ velocity of that phase, yes or no. So, this is one particular technique which I have written as measurement of average phase velocity, which can be done by a radioactive tracer technique. There is another way also of measuring the in situ velocity, that is a electromagnetic flow metering device. I do not know whether you know what an electromagnet is. Electromagnet, it is mounted, I do not know whether you have seen, if you go to my laboratory you can see they are simply mounted on vertical pipes. The vertical pipes, they are mounted on it, and what they do, they generate an electrical field within them. This electrical field is proportional to the velocity of flow or the flow rate. So, depending upon the electrical field generated, it gives us a measure of the flow velocity. Electromagnetic flow meter is a very well established flow measuring device in vertical systems for conducting fluids. For non-conducting fluids, it is not going to serve our purpose. For conducting fluids and in vertical systems, it is very good. Okay. So, suppose we install an electromagnetic flow meter and at least one of the phases are conducting, then in that case the reading will give us the flow rate of the conducting phase, provided that is the major phase or that is the continuous phase. If that is not the continuous phase, electrical fields will not be generated and will not get a reading of the velocity, neither of the continuous nor of the dispersed phase. Okay. But if the conducting one of the phases are at least conducting and the conducting phase is the major phase, then in that case an estimate of the average phase velocity can be obtained by this electromagnetic flow metering device. Clear to all of you? And definitely the last method, optical methods, a very tedious method. You take a series of photographs, analyze the photographs and try to find out the void fraction. A very safe method definitely, but it is very difficult. It may seem to you that well, there is no problem in it. Just seeing the photographs is fine, but getting out something mathematical from the photographs is very difficult. Getting good photographs is definitely a challenge, particularly when the flow velocity is very high, everything is oscillating and small problems which you will not realize. Suppose even if it is bubbly flow, okay, with a large number of bubbles. First thing is, when you take the photograph, you will take it from an angle. So, definitely this bubble, this shape will become deformed in your photograph. Okay. So, there has to be a calibration to convert this shape to this shape, and then this shape maybe will become something of this sort. So, for each particular thing you need a calibration, and then it's very tedious, but it is not that people haven't done it. See, if they have to find it, if they find none of the other methods are suitable, they have to go for it. Or in other words, there is another optical method which is very good. What is that? If you use light scattering. See, light scattering is much less hazardous and much cheaper and much easier to handle as compared to radiation scattering. We can use light scattering. It depends upon the difference in the refractive index, or it depends upon the difference in the attenuation of the two methods. In fact, I will tell you one thing, what we had done in our lab was, for air water it was not a problem. After air water we started liquid systems, flow systems. We started with water kerosene system. What we found, see, radiation absorption staying here, it is not possible, we will never get the permission. We were using impedance probes of different designs for different air water systems. We went on devising designs and we tried to use them for circular pipes, no problem. For annulus, the flow passage is obstructed. So, how to ensure a continuous flow between the two electrodes? So, taking that into consideration, we designed probes which were suitable for annulus as well. We tried to devise a large number of conductivity probes for different situations. Next, when we went for kerosene water, nothing intrusive could work, because the kerosene was sticking to it, and moment, see, suppose kerosene comes in contact with the probe, sticks to it, then when water comes, the kerosene is still sticking. So, it cannot detect the flow of water. Do you understand? So, therefore, nothing intrusive could work here. We could not use any sort of impedance probes. So, what was the next thing that we thought of? We thought, suppose we use optical method. We had used ultraviolet rays. Okay, we had a source, we had a detector, and then an ultraviolet ray was passing, and then this particular ray, while it was passing, naturally it was absorbed more for kerosene, it was absorbed less for water. Okay. So, the other thing was, so therefore, depending upon the proportion of kerosene and water, we got a higher signal when more amount of water was there in the flow passage, less absorption took place. We got a lower signal when less amount of kerosene was present in the flow passage. more amount of kerosene was present in the flow passage, and accordingly we could find out the void fraction. In this particular case, this was very unique. So, in fact, we have patented it because it was completely new, but the important point is we could not use visible light. Why? Because visible light is entering from all sides into the flow passage. We have to use something which is not entering from all sides. You can use visible light, but in that case you have to keep it in a black box, so that light from extraneous sources do not enter there. We had tried infrared probes also, that did not work much. Ultraviolet source worked better. I do not know whether I have a photograph, then I can show you. Let me see if I have a photograph of this. Yeah, this is the optical probe which was there. There was a source here, there was a detector here. If you see, there was a detector here. The situation is shown here. A very narrow beam is ejected, and then what happens is, see, it was very interesting. It could give us flow pattern and void fraction both. What was happening here? The entire two-phase mixture was distributed, okay, maybe kerosene is distributed in water or something, and while it was travelling, when it comes in contact with kerosene, more amount of light was attenuated. When it came in contact with water, less amount of light was attenuated. So, therefore, the transmitted signal, it depended on how much amount of kerosene and water are present. This was number 1. Number 2, interestingly, see, we could also understand how this kerosene was distributed. If they were distributed as bubbles, then in that case what happened? A large amount of scattering used to take place. Is it clear? And when it was stratified flow, kerosene top, water less, then very less amount of scattering was taking place. Okay. So, therefore, I think I have, yeah, you just see when it was stratified flow, see here large amount of kerosene is here, here small amount of kerosene is there. For large amount of kerosene what we had got a higher voltage value. Sorry, very sorry, USK, acha, sorry, here less amount of water, large amount of kerosene, yeah, correct. So, therefore, we got a higher voltage value. Moment we had larger amount of water, we had a lower voltage value. Is it correct? What we were doing, the amount which was transmitted, that was converted to a voltage signal. How it was converted? The voltage signal was high when water was the continuous phase, it was low when kerosene was the continuous phase. The circuit was designed in that particular way. Okay. So, therefore, we find that whenever water is in larger proportion, we have a lower voltage, whenever kerosene was in larger proportion, we had a higher voltage. Not only that, if you observe the signals, we find that when the interface was smooth, we obtained an almost straight line signal. On the other hand, when there were bubbles, then each particular bubble surface or droplet surface behaved as a reflecting surface. They were reflecting the light, isn't it? So, therefore, the undulations were much more for dispersed flow. So, therefore, the two things were important in our case. One was the average value of the voltage that we were getting, the other was the amount of fluctuations which we were receiving here. So, depending upon these two, we could find out not only the relative proportion of the two phases in the mixture, but we could also obtain an idea regarding the distribution of the two phases here. So, this was the beauty of the optical probe that we had used in this particular case. It had a power supply, it had a detector. In this, it was a photodiode sort of a thing. Now, what happened? Moment light was incident, it was converted into an electrical signal. This electrical signal, through a processing circuit, it was sent to a data acquisition system, and then it was recorded in the computer. And as I have told you, for higher values we get, for higher kerosene we got higher voltage, for lower kerosene we got a lower voltage. So, this was one particular thing which we used for this. Of course, we will be studying slightly more if when we take up the void fraction thing. So, these were the different techniques that are used. Okay. So, there are acoustic techniques, there are optical methods, Then definitely measurement of average void fraction either by radioactive tracer or electromagnetic flow metering devices. Then there are other radiation absorption techniques which can be microwave absorption, infrared absorption, nuclear magnetic resonance, neutron noise analysis, and so on and so forth. Now, before I conclude the void fraction measurement, I would just like to, in a nutshell, I would like to discuss in the remaining time what are the different methods which are used under different conditions. See, the technique we will select according to the requirement which we have. Which void fraction do we have to measure? If it is a volume average, only thing we can do is quick closing valve technique. Here if you see this transparency, it is written down. Or else what we can do, we can get a large number of caudal averages as I was telling, and then we can transfer it to the volume average value. This is of course very tedious, very expensive, and transient measurements it is not possible. Remember one thing, quick closing valve is a very accurate technique, but it is only for steady state situations, otherwise it is not very accurate. Next is for cross sectional average void fraction. I have already discussed what are the different ways by which we can obtain cross sectional average. It can be either by radiation absorption or it can be by impedance techniques. We have to integrate caudal average measurements over the cross section, and what are the different methods I have already told you. Either we can traverse a single beam radiation or a multi-beam radiation at one time. This multi-beam radiation, it is useful for transient measurements, or the one shot technique which I was telling, that a large source can be used with special collimators, and accordingly this one shot technique can be used. Neutron scattering can be done, and impedance void gauges can definitely be used when radiation methods are unacceptable, which was the case for my particular situation. Caudal average, again you can either use a parallel wire type impedance, radiation absorption. For local void fraction, again a local point electrode probe can be used. Side scatter gamma techniques can be used, but this side scatter gamma technique can be used only for steady state measurements. Transient measurements cannot be done by this case. Transient either optical or electrical void can be used. Other thing is, has the measurement to be of transient or a steady state? I have already told you some techniques like quick closing valve techniques, side scatter gamma technique, they are unsuitable for transient measurements since they require a long counting time. These cannot be used. Next, very frequently we have to deal with systems which are at high pressure and high temperature. For such cases, the only option is quick closing valve technique. For high temperature and pressure, of course, we cannot use ball valves and things like that. We have to operate it from a remote distance. So, therefore, solenoid operated, electrically operated valves are the only things. Optical probes, if they are suitably designed, can be used for these particular purposes. Now, suppose the fluids are such that we cannot approach the fluid, or non-intrusive techniques are mandatory. Maybe the fluid will get, it is of high quality, it will get contaminated if anything is inserted there. It can happen. Particularly for local void fraction measurement, this intrusive techniques are almost the only ways by which we can do. So, if non-intrusive techniques are mandatory, what is the best method? Your side scatter gamma technique, okay, where some amount of gamma radiation they are scattered, and the scattered beam that is being recorded by a detector. Again remember, this cannot be done for transient measurements, it requires long counting time. Remember one thing which is very important, if you want to measure the local void fraction by non-intrusive technique and transient, there is no ideal solution. This is very important, no ideal solution for transient non-intrusive local void fraction measurement. Remember this. Other thing is, if suppose the time variation and non-uniformities are there in the flow, under that condition usually we would like to have a linear response, as I was telling. In slug flow etc., if the response is not linear, it is a problem. So, for linear response, what you have to do? If it is radiation attenuation technique, the only thing is to use a hard gamma source, as I have said, which is weakly absorbed. When it is weakly absorbed, naturally absorption approximates the linear form. This is the only thing that can be used under this particular condition. Next is, if sufficient electronics expertise is available, because see X-ray machines everybody cannot use. Just now I and you, we cannot use the X-ray machines. Okay. So, therefore, if sufficient electronics is not available, then X-ray machines cannot be used, otherwise X-ray machines can be used. Same thing applies for neutron scattering techniques also. If suitable neutron source is available, okay, which is quite an expensive affair, and if adequate time response is available, then in that case we can use this neutron scattering. Available and cross sectional average void fraction is required under transient condition, then definitely neutron scattering has to be used. Okay. Under this circumstances, a sufficient strong source has to be used for counting statistics, that reduction of fluctuating error, a strong source has to be used. For steady state, of course, if it is not transient, if it is transient, neutron scattering is the only technique. For steady state, definitely we can use a multi-beam X-ray or a gamma ray absorption technique. Okay. For transient measurements, of course, we can also use a one shot technique as well. What are the other things that we have to consider? Because we have to work over a wide range of flow situations, a large number of factors have to be considered for selection of the criteria. If the flow is reasonably homogeneous, fine, if it is bubbly flow. If it is not homogeneous, then definitely it becomes a problem. Particularly if the entire flow passage, it is obstructed by something. Suppose you have to work on two-phase flows where large number of things are inserted, such applications are there, or two-phase flow through rod bundles say, or two-phase flow through concentric annulus. There the entire flow passage is not free for your measurements. Under these conditions, it becomes a problem. Other thing, if the flow passage is circular, it is fine. If it is not circular, sometimes for different types of geometries also it becomes a problem. Okay. So, for non-circular cases, and when your the flow field, the flow passage, it is not homogeneous, not a constant cross section, definitely impedance void gauges can be used if you design it properly. The design is very important for this particular case. And for circular pipes, I had already shown you this rotating field gauge, this is more or less useful. We can use something of this sort as well. Okay. And if it is a non-circular channel, then definitely this rotating field sort of a thing, because the symmetry does not hold, it is not possible. Under that condition, concentric ring impedance gauge, that means we can have something, a flow passage like this, we can have a ring here, we can have a ring here, and just rings, two rings, they are non-intrusive, and between these two rings maybe we can have a circuit. Between these two rings, the electrical path is provided by this particular process. This can also be thought of under these circumstances. Well, so with this we conclude the void fraction measurements. We find out that in void fraction measurements, the most important three techniques are volume measurement, radiation attenuation techniques, it can be absorption, it can be scattering, or radiation techniques you can write, it can be absorption, it can be scattering to some extent, it can be emission of a consequent radiation, and impedance gauges. Impedance gauges are popular just because they can be made to adjust to a wide variety of flow situations, simply because by the design of the probes as well as the circuits. Okay. Other techniques which we have discussed, they are coming up, and depending upon the applications etc., we can use them for a large number of cases. So, this completes our void fraction measurement. In the next class, we will be discussing ways to identify flow patterns. Now, remember one thing, what is flow pattern? It is simply the variation of voids, how they are distributed. Instead of the average value, we need to record the variation. The variation can be across a cross section, the variation can be at a point, anything. More or less the techniques which are applicable for void fraction, the same techniques will be applicable in that case also. Visual is definitely one, okay, but it is not a very good technique. Then naturally gamma, your radiation absorption can be one, impedance can be one. So, definitely we are not going to repeat these techniques. What we are going to do is, we will be seeing more or less certain like pressure drop fluctuations etc. They cannot be converted to void fraction data, but they can definitely be recorded for showing the fluctuations in the signals. We will be doing a small amount of them, and then we will discuss a detailed conductivity probe design for estimating the flow patterns in a horizontal and a vertical tube. And remember one thing, just by seeing the recording of the signals, it is not always possible to identify flow patterns. Sometimes we have to perform some statistical or other analysis. If time permits, we will also study a few basics of the probability density function and the PSDF analysis of analyzing the random probe signals. These are the few things which we will be doing in the last class, and that will end up our studies or our discussions on multiphase flow. So, thank you very much.